Whoa, there we are.
Oh,
Inspector.
hello, Jeff.
How you doing? What do you got there? Is that a number 2?
Yes, it's a number 2. I won't make any other jokes about number 2. But I may make a few jokes about number 3.
Oh, that's Oh.
All right. Welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm getting over my colds, so I'm like I have more energy now. It's all good. The spring has sprung, maybe. Who knows?
Spring has sprung you. Well, we'll see. And on my end, Jeff, how am I?
Who cares?
Oh God. I'm good. I actually have gone ahead and closed down every single element on this computer so that our broadcast is not interrupted again.
Yes.
Not to say that it won't be, but it could be. But not because of anything I did.
Right. It could be because the planets aligning incorrectly or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. How's the rest of you people out there? Anybody
I see.
What do we got? We got Greg.
Gavin.
Yeah. LinkedIn user says sup.
So
who is that?
It's Dan Roth.
Oh, fucking Dan Roth. Love me some Dan Roth. I'll tell you that much.
That's David Lee Roth's brother.
Yeah, that's what I'm told. He's so great you could sop him up with a biscuit, that guy. Dan, I mean.
Nice.
All right, Dan, I will not sop you up with a biscuit. That was inappropriate, and I apologize. Profusely? I don't
know either.
So cool, man. I see. All right, cool. Well, we got a great show today. We got a great guest. And I will say, unfortunately, our pal Robert's not making it in today. But we've got a great guest, and we'll carry forward here. We're talking about a bunch of cool stuff, but in particular, the concept in theory on paper about today's program is that we'll be talking about CPG, capital, fundraising, founder growth, and what brands actually need before they chase the money. And our guest is someone that knows quite a bit about that and enjoys talking about it, amongst other things. So, Jeff, is there anything else we're doing today? We've got what? Link Dick?
Yes, we have our segment on awful DMs and emails and things like that.
Okay, if anybody has a small bank or cadre or a couple of files they want to drop into the comments of some of the more outrageous and stupid cold DMs you get on LinkedIn, we'd love to see them.
Yes.
Jeff always gets them. I do too. But Jeff's got some doozies always lined up for us. So, well, this is where the dogs of society howl, and welcome to the program. So today we're talking, like I said, a lot of founders think that capital is the unlock to all their dreams. And sometimes it is, right, Jeff?
Making paper,
as they say on the North Shore.
Yes.
Get a dunks and make some paper. But a lot of times it just frankly isn't. And we're going to have a conversation that actually makes the CPG brand, what makes it investable, scalable, and less likely to blow itself apart the minute the growth part shows up.
Sure.
And as well, we have experience in that world where, people want everything, they're ready to go, and they don't have any money to do the rest of it. I was saying earlier, I have a picked up the Iron Maiden album Number of the Beast, and it looks to me like they blew all the album artwork money on the cover illustration, and then they got this weird pre-Photoshop clip art thing of themselves on the back, and it's like, shit, you guys just ran out of money, didn't you? Right?
Yeah, they had Eddie.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. You know, all the money went into that demonic skeleton thing, and you know, the thing that made all parents freak out and all kids freak out to get more of it,
Right.
which again is a whole other story for brands to consider. But without further ado, we've got some people in the world, they like hobbies, they collect them. Some other people just collect things and opinions, I guess. Our guest today actually seems to appear to collect both. He's a founder, an operator, a CPG advisor, investment-minded growth builder. He's a private dancer. No, he's not. He's a self-described nerd about history, philosophy, math, old movies, literature, and economics. He also claims that he and Susan, we'll get into who Susan is, eat more broccoli than any other two people alive on planet Earth, which seems a bit impossible, but who knows? We'll find out. I respect his commitment to that. So anyways, our friend today is one half of Brandjectory, a platform built to help CPG founders grow smarter and become more fundable without drowning in all the bad advice, vanity noise, and investor cosplay. Is that the right way to say that word, Jeff? Cosplay?
I think so.
Cosplay?
Yeah, cosplay.
I never know.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, spelling words like possibility there, things like that. I can't spell them. Even palette. I don't know how you feel about the word palette. If anybody knows the correct English spelling of palette, I'd like to have it tattooed on my forearm so I can
never get that right. It's a bad one.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, we're going to bring in, and Jeff, if you'll rush him from the green room through that long, narrow hallway. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome all the way from Brandjectory headquarters, Mr. Tom Malengo.
Woo!
Hey guys,
Hey, Tom.
hi. I like the David Lynch opening. I'm hoping Angelica Houston and Laura Dern will be here today.
Yes. Actually, next week, Tom, we have Anton LaVey.
Don't be told.
And if you're not following him on LinkedIn, you're going to go to hell.
Well, so
And
is
if he
it,
has
is
his
it
way, you
lever
will
or
be
lever?
in.
Is it lever or lever?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
Whatever floats your tomato. You know what I mean?
My wife's grandmother used to say tomato, and I love that. I don't say it, but occasionally I'll throw it around, and it always makes me think good things. Welcome, Tom. What's happening, man?
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here. I know you guys usually have cool people on, so I'm glad you have me on.
Dude, you are like ice cold, baby. So
I don't know where do I start explaining? I think
where do we begin? Where do we begin? So you're calling in. You're calling in today from where? Whereabouts on planet Zoom?
Susan and I are in Scottsdale.
Hey, Susan, what's up?
So it's nice here. It's 77 degrees already. So we're in that beautiful weather time, and it's gonna get hot, but that we have air conditioning, and happy hours start early here.
Well,
nice.
Right, Tom. It's 35 degrees here and no hope in sight. So that's all the time we have for today.
See you later.
Thanks for coming. Scottsdale's beautiful, man. Beautiful. I crossed the city limit once and was asked to leave pretty quickly. So from what I could see from the edge, it looked nice.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about Brandjectory. What's the road from where'd you come from?
Oh boy.
Where did you go? Let's not get into the Cotton Eye Joe part of that, but what was your road to Brandjectory about, and what is Brandjectory?
So I'll try to make it as short as possible. But Susan and I were the type trying to eat healthy years ago in the 80s. And if you in the 80s you had a bran muffin for breakfast and 2 salads, life was good. You'd live forever. So we got excited in the 80s when the products started to appear, the Annies and the Amy's and the Stonyfields, Barbara's. It was a time when we like to say pirate booty was considered healthy because it wasn't a corn pop. We didn't have a Whole Foods and in Cleveland, where we lived until 2003. So if we were on the road, we were hitting up Whole Foods. We had a Natural Grocers 30 miles south of us in Fairlawn, Ohio. We drive down there in snowstorms to get our organic veggies and things like that. So we just started going trade shows for fun. We had our careers and they were in other industries, and we were just going to trade shows to see products and get all the samples, okay, and founders.
Yeah, why not?
It was just fun. It was a 3 or 4 day vacation to drive over to Expo East or to go over to specialty food shows. So we were just doing that, and we then I took a buyout at work, and we left Cleveland for Scottsdale, and really wanted to do something in food. And we thought, okay, well, we have a broad business background. Susan was in marketing and advertising and publishing. I spent my years at a bank in finance and operations and technology. We said, let's help brands. Let's invest, advise, consult. We did that for a few years. We knew how much help brands needed. But what we wanted to do was help more brands. And that's what brought us to Brandjectory, was try to create a platform where brands really can meet regularly with industry experts and investors in one-on-one and group problem-solving sessions virtually. Keep those relationships going, build relationships, get more engaged with the industry, so that even if they're just starting out, it's not the $15,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 to go to a trade show. And not to knock anything, but it costs money and time and effort. And we just want to make sure that we give brands that chance to connect with people in the industry and learn from some of the best people, and learn in a way that it's it really goes to what their problems are.
Oh, that's wild. Very cool, man. I love that. And from Cleveland to Scottsdale, that's a big jump, right?
3 time zones, but two, we're in Arizona, so we never change the clocks.
Yeah.
So we had that 2 hour. This week we're working on it's 3 hours. Okay. I mean, up until yesterday, I thought this was at 11:30 our time.
I love it. So that's kind of what pulled you into working into the food and beverage world, was just saying, hey, you know what? These people need help, and we want to help them.
Yeah. And we were the type that, like I said, we were, Cleveland didn't have organic vegetables in the 1980s, right. So, we were happy when the farmers came in August and July, but that was the only time you really got fresh vegetables. The rest of the year they were coming from Mexico, and, by the time they either got through the heat, humidity, or freezing cold temperatures, the vegetables sucked.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, that didn't exist, and and it didn't, the quality wasn't there. One thing that's nice about here is there's year-round farmers markets. Everything's irrigated, so outside of the farmers maybe leaving the land, go farrow, in August when the heat, at the height of the heat, before they start replanting in September, we get year-round, fresh vegetables. And I take the dog for a walk, and this time of year I bring home an orange, I bring home a lemon, I bring home a grapefruit, just because the neighbors have them out.
Right.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's crazy.
Awesome.
Wow. Did you say you grow farro there?
Farro.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did you say you grow farro there? Farro?
No. I said they let the ground go fallow for
fallow.
a month or so in August. Just because it's hot, and then they start replanting in September as the temperature is cool.
Okay.
When you go to the farmers market, do they say, Tom's coming, hide the broccoli? It's gonna buy us out. What's up with the broccoli? Tell us about the broccoli.
Susan and I are just, first off, I'm Italian, right? And broccoli is a vegetable from the Roman Empire. Okay, so it comes naturally to me. Actually, both my parents grew up on small farms in Pennsylvania. Okay, so these were areas where everybody had a farm, even if they worked in the mines. For some part of the year, they always had a farm going. So I grew up, having to do all the stuff that you would have to do on a farm. Even though we lived in Cleveland, I'd go back and spend summers, with my grandparents and my no and my uncles, and just do everything that was. And they had chickens, and they raised rabbits for food because they were Depression era people, and they raised pigeons for food and stuff like that. So I did all that, but broccoli was always a mainstay. And for Susan and I, we just look at broccoli as one of the healthiest things you can probably eat. Okay, and quite frankly, we go through 4 or 5 pounds a week. Okay.
Wow.
Which for 2 people is an awful lot, but there's
That's a good
probably
amount.
not a meal, salad or otherwise, unless we eat out where we don't get broccoli. And sometimes when we eat out, we order a side of broccoli.
Give the
Okay.
side of
It's just
broccoli,
part of
please.
our nature.
Yeah.
But it's
Nothing wrong with it.
last night it was with lemon and ginger. The night before it was with garlic. Sometimes we do it with actually there's studies that show that if you grind up brown mustard seed and make it with brown mustard seed, it's like 10x
Oh,
the
really?
antioxidants. Yeah, that brown mustard seed brings out the antioxidants in it. So it's just one of those healthy things that we feel, if we're gonna, if we got to put vegetables in our body and we need to, that broccoli is one that is well-rounded, and so it's probably our go-to. I guess there's 2 things when the mandatory government lockdown started. The 2 things I worried about in the house were olive oil and broccoli.
Broccoli. Right.
I figured we'd get through the toilet paper issue.
Yeah.
So how like when war comes, you stock up on oil.
Yes.
Okay, there were probably about 8 liters of olive oil in my kitchen.
Oh, we'll get to the olive oil because I've got questions. I'm a big fan of really good olive oil, and but anyway, yeah, no. Jeff, you got a double question. I think we've got to pop in.
Yeah,
there.
I think so I kind of know the first question I had was like what why food and beverage specifically, but you kind of answered that.
Yeah.
In terms of getting into the health food way back in the day, right? But what gap did you see in the market in terms that led you to Brandjectory? Like what were founders getting wrong or just not getting across to that made you say I need to do this, make this exist?
I think when we started out, like I said, we started going to trade shows kind of for fun, and we just saw how hard it was for brands to really know people, get good advice, talk to people, engage with the right people. We also saw that and I think what led us to the path of Brandjectory was this probably sounds a little critical, but brands sort of think, hey, I got a great product, everybody's going to run to me. Okay, I'm going to find buyers. I'm going to find customers. I'm going to find investors. And the truth is, you have to know you not just have to know the consumer. You have to know where that consumer is, and you got to get them to shop your product.
Yeah,
and you got to get it off the shelf. And guess what? Investors invest in businesses, and until you're a business, until you prove sales, you can always get friends and family money. You can always get the person, hey, I know Jeff. He's a great guy. He knows how to do stuff. I've worked with him before. I'll invest in him. But, until you start showing those turns on the shelf and you really prove sales and know how you know how to do it and that you know how to do it cost efficiently, investors are going to be leery, and they'll talk to you and they'll give you time and they'll give you energy, maybe a little bit, and they'll give you thoughts. But, it's not until that point where you really can prove those sales that they're going to say, hey, this is a business, and it's a business we can grow. And if you've grown in the Northeast, we can grow it in the Southeast. And if we grow it in the Southeast, we can grow it in Texas. And if we grow it in Texas, we got the Southwest, that they can start to see that pattern, see that growth. Investors invest in growth, and not in potential growth. They invest in the actual ability and opportunity to grow. So, I may get a PO from Sprouts and I need to fund that. Well, it's hard to do until you actually have the PO in hand. Okay.
Right.
And
also it's the first order thing, right? So we were talking about this, I think, even on the last show, is it's the second or third order is when you're in. It's not the first one.
And until you've had that method of getting the product off the shelf. Getting on the shelf is tough. You got to convince a buyer and and get it on the shelf, and then you got to produce it and get it there. Getting it off the shelf is harder. Is it demos? Is it trade spend? How are you going to do it? What's the way in which you do it? How is your consumer going to find out about you? And that's probably where most founders start to say, they start to think maybe it's just money. Maybe I just need money to unlock that. But it doesn't. You can have the money, but it doesn't mean demos is the right way to do it. It doesn't mean advertising is the right way to do it. It doesn't mean a great TikTok shop is the way to do it. But those are all things that can. But which one works for your brand, and where are your consumers?
So, like, would the founders thinking that growth gets them the funding? That's probably misguided kind of thought process.
Thinking that growth gets them funding?
Yeah, that showing their growth will get them the funding that they're looking for, or is there?
It will if they can prove A, how it happened, and B, it was cost efficient.
Okay. Is there any kind of growth like sloppy growth? It's a weird.
Sure. If your cost margins are crazy, if your cost margins are crazy,
you could scare the money off.
Out of control. If you can't prove the capital efficiency that you know how to spend a dollar and that dollar produces more. I've seen good brands that they grow, but it's been all based on funding. It's a good product and people buy it, but they can't produce it efficiently. They have to figure out ways to do that. And these are things that we help introduce them to at Brandjectory. We bring in someone like next month. We're having someone come in who's an operations expert. We open up 3 slots with that. And I'm not trying to sell Brandjectory, but I'm trying to say what brands need. We open up 3 slots with an operations expert. Brand signs up for that slot. They say what their problem is. They get 20 minutes to go one-on-one with that operations expert and tries to help them, try to figure out what's the lack of efficiency, what's going on. We do the same thing with someone like trade spend. We'll bring in Fred Schroeder. Hopefully he'll come in. He's been in before. We'll get him in again. We'll set up some time for brands to meet with him, ask their questions, get personalized feedback that helps them. This is when brands start to figure it out. This is when they start to get that thought of, okay, how do I become efficient and actually become repeatable in showing my success and grow? Yeah. And everybody wants to get, don't get me wrong, everybody wants to get sprouts, and it's great if you do, and but if you're located in Connecticut or New Jersey and you get sprouts across the country, well, guess what? You don't have a lot of sprouts in New Jersey or Philadelphia's got about 6 or 7 sprouts. Okay, you get to Philadelphia by train and you do a bunch of demos, but you're not, you go over to Long Island, they got 1 store there, you take a ferry and go over, you get your chance to demo, but you're in Omaha and you're in Ocola and you're out here in Phoenix, It's more about growing where you are, understanding how you make that market work, and being able to say you can repeat it somewhere else.
That's great. That's really smart. I like growing where you are as a concept, and that's going to lead us into a couple of other things here. I want to start off by let's put 2 in the chest and 1 in the head of the fantasy. What does investment ready for CPG actually mean?
It means cost margins. It means growth, and it means knowing who your consumer is and being able to explain to an investor how you can touch that consumer and grow your brand. Okay. It's that market strategy, go-to-market strategy. It's that ability to say, I know how to reach the next customer. Okay, and it might be if you're 19 years old and you got whoever, I'm going to prove I'm not cool. The Kardashians on your side. Okay. Coming up with a name. Okay. Yeah, you can grow your brand on TikTok. Okay. Or if you're one of the beautiful people. Okay. If you're, a 50-year-old guy trying to launch an alcoholic coffee, okay, the chances of TikTok scoring for you might be a little less. I don't know,
unless you're ambassadors younger.
Yeah, unless you have some other thing going for you. I don't know. Right. But it's that kind of thing that I think makes it, really, really, important for brands to understand and be able to explain to investor, this is how I'm going to grow. But yeah, investors are going to look at different things at different sizes. They know that a brand at $1.5 million in sales is probably a 1-person brand with 2 or 3 contractors. But they're also going to look at you when you're 3 or 4 million in sales, and they're going to say, who's your contractual CFO? Who's your contractual CMO? Okay, do you really have someone who's monitoring sales? Okay, we're going to start to ask those questions at 5 or 6 million. They're going to want to see those people either hired or close to full time, or you're using a service that regularly does it and it's showing growth. So as you grow, these brands have to think about, what is the investor looking for? And that's what we try to do, is let them know what investors are looking for, and understand, for their kind of situation, whatever size they are, what is it that they need to have in place for an investor to actually take interest?
I love that. You're saying exactly what we try to preach to, as far as when we work with a brand on, either their identity or the elements that come beyond that, the website or collateral beyond that, is that getting their story straight in the first place is essential. It's critical. You can do all the other stuff. We can make you a pretty website that works, but if your story sucks or isn't landing with people, nobody's going to go there and nobody's going to trust you. Nobody's going to buy into what you're doing. But the same thing applies, I think, to these CPG brands or any brand that is looking for investment. Now, it's a different kind of story. It's a different, but what you were just saying, as far as showing that growth and showing that commitment to, we're bringing more people on, it's duplicatable, we're able to expand.
You're getting the product off the shelf. There's the numbers that support that. You can show, no investor is going to say, oh, you've been on the market 6 months and you're not beating Poppy or Olipop. Okay. Yeah. But if you're running a nice third to Poppy and Olipop and in their arena, investor's going to take notice. They're going to say, hey, well, maybe there's some legs here. How are you getting there? How are you making that happen? Let's talk about, how that happens somewhere else. How are you going to sell where, maybe if you're someplace where, those guys aren't on the shelf, they start to ask those kinds of questions. And the shelf is crowded. I mean, I'm sure there isn't any, I think I saw Richard Munna's names point up here. The shelf is crowded. And where you are on the shelf, how you figure out, you got a bar. Well, as literally Susan and I go down the bar aisle at, Sprouts, and we just stop looking. Okay. It's just a bunch of color, by the time you get, you're like, I'm going to pick up a bar and I'm going to read the ingredients, cause there's it's on the inside little flap on the behind, it's that kind of thing. So, how you place on the shelf, how you, where you are, how many, units you're selling, or, are you next to the same kinds of brands and you're never going to get noticed? Are you in that little bit of white space and gray space where nobody exists? Okay. Yes. And is that's what's getting you attention? Okay. These are the things that you have to think about to drive that velocity to a point where investors are going to wake up and take notice.
Yeah. The sea of sameness, right? That happens because on their website, it's all their own. They're the only thing on the shelf on the website.
Right. Exactly. But, how do you stand out? What colors? It kind of gets a little weird to think about it, but what color is going to stand out? Let's face it. You go some places and, every one of the products is green. Okay. Maybe it's more green than white and maybe it's more white than green, but it's, everything looks the same. Okay. And, and who's, and we know more and more, it's like over 50% now of all, it's like 58% of all consumers check labels. Okay. Well, you better make sure and make it very clear what's on your packaging, what's in that product, because they are checking. And, you're going to, if they can't find what's the differentiation between you and somebody else, it's going to be a tough sale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, in that point, though, just really quick is that, before you think about packaging and differentiating yourself on the shelf, you've really got to dial in what your story is, what signals that feeds. And those are the signals that go into the packaging and the messaging and the marketing. And that's the part where I think a lot of people, a lot of founders trip up. Is that, we start thinking like, how can we differentiate on the shelf first? And frankly, it's my belief that once you've clarified everything and really streamlined and given it a good sharp edge, a lot less explaining has to be done. A lot less heavy lifting has to happen. People begin to learn and earn the trust factor well before that. And if you do that in order, I'm not saying the package doesn't matter, because it very much does, but there's less heavy lifting, I think, in that area. But you're right. It all leads to the same, result.
And Peter, one questions I first ask a founder is, why is the consumer choosing you?
That's right.
And some they always go, oh, I'm organic, I'm mission based. They come up, no. Unfortunately, every brand is now a lifestyle brand, and I mean that by people bring a product into their life.
Mhm.
Okay, it doesn't matter what it is. They have it for some reason. Okay, it does something for them. It means something to them. It provides them with something. It may be the functional necessity. It may be the great taste. It may be the timing of when they use it, but it becomes part of their life. The only way you're going to get repeatable sales is if you're part of a consumer's life. There is a reason every day they go to choose you. Okay.
Yes.
And when they walk into Sprouts or they walk into Whole Foods or anywhere else, they have everything available to them. But guess what? It's like 97% of the people go into the store and just buy what they did before because they're familiar with it.
That's it. There's a familiarity. And if you can create a backstory, a truth and a promise that can be signaled through packaging and everything else. What you're ultimately trying to do, I think, is that the product is not the hero of the story. The consumer is their own hero. The product is the supporter, mentor, guide that helps them solve their challenge. That's your role as the product.
Right.
And
you got to give them the means. You got to give them the tools.
That's right. You present yourself that way.
Yeah, and it's got to come authentically. It can't just be like, oh, I picked the 5 best ingredients and I put them in a product. Okay.
It's people choose you
because
because
have to believe it. You actually have to believe it.
Yes.
Yeah, you do. And you're not just at that point when you've done all these steps correctly. I think what you end up with is that you become not just an alternative to maybe a bigger, more familiar brand that has a lot more money than you do. What you become is the obvious choice.
Right.
And that's what gets the sales started, and that is what will maintain them.
Right. And if you get that started, you're cost efficient, you get profitable, you show growth, all these things start to mean something to an investor. And if you're doing it, and quite frankly, while there's different kinds of investors and they're looking at different things, if you're doing it at 100 stores in a certain region, okay, you have to prove to that investor that you can do it at 500 stores in another region. That the walk from 100 stores around, New York to, Wegmans to Publix to Sprouts, all starts to fall in place, from, particular your region to, but you start to prove that, investors invest in actual businesses, businesses that are growing, businesses that can turn a profit. All those things start to make sense from an investor's point of view, that this is something that they can invest in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think some brands, I laugh only because there is a Whole Foods and Sprouts right across Tatum Road from each other. I mean, they're directly across. I mean, you walk out of Whole Foods, you see Sprouts. You walk out of Sprouts, you see Whole Foods. And we go to both. Okay. But the crowds that are in there are very different.
It's different.
Different Sprouts is filled with, ladies, coming from yoga or tennis with their kids in tow. They've been at soccer practice. They're shopping for the families. Where on the other hand, Whole Foods has single people running in to get their, lunch, to get their dinner. They have old folks like us going in because there's certain products we need to stay alive.
No, we talked a little. It's funny. This is a good segue because we talked a little bit about like the red flags, so to speak, right? So they, margin and believable growth story. All these things are so important, right? But how about let's just talk a little bit about like the channel strategy or clarity, because a lot of times too, I think founders think, okay, I need to get into so many doors, or maybe they're just thinking like, oh, I got to get into Sprouts, like you're saying, but there's a lot of alternative channels, right?
Yeah, and I think this is kind of one of those, some brands don't know where they're going to sell best, right? So they try a little bit of everything. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there'll be ones that see kind of growth in retail and they say, okay, retail's my thing, but I'm going to keep pushing on e-commerce too, and that may not be the right choice. A small brand only has so much time available. Okay. They're not a team yet. Okay. They're themselves, or they're paying for services, it's a drain on their time and their energy. So focused growth is important. Yes, you need to know what channel you're going to approach and where you're going to grow, but thinking that through and testing it is probably a good idea. You know, there's hundreds, I mean, maybe thousands, I don't know, of independent places to grab a beverage in New York City. Okay, you guys are probably closer to that than I am, right? But there's probably, there's probably thousands, in Manhattan and Brooklyn, and and yeah, you can put a lot on the shelf. Is that what's going to take you to, Wegmans or Sprouts or what's next? Or is it getting in 23 Gelson's in SoCal and proving what you can do in an actual sort of sizable, or at least a little bit sizable retailer? How do you do that? Is it profitable for you? Is it making you money? Is it showing your growth? Are your tactics working? Okay. Those are the kinds of things. E-commerce can be cheap. It can be expensive. It can be sometimes cheap to advertise, expensive to ship. There's all these things.
It's a proving ground for most brands that are starting anyway.
Yeah, to get some sales, to see if people, the one thing it's great at is getting feedback, right? Who your consumer is. You can send them a survey. You can get information. If you sign up for programs on Amazon, you get feedback from their reviewers. There's all kinds of things that actually help on e-commerce, especially if you're developing your product, to see what people say about it. Okay. Right. But, again, certain products fit certain places. If you're cold and in glass, the last place you probably are going to grow is Amazon, is e-commerce.
That's true.
Yeah. You've run across a few of those scenarios. It happens.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, we all know there's a lot of conflicting advice, and founders are privy to probably all of it. Is there any advice you wish that founders would ignore more frequently?
Well,
don't say advice from me, because that's not fair.
That's a tough one. I think I really think it just falls on that that founder just to keep testing the thoughts you hear. I mean, every brand I talk to, I say I'm one man's opinion. Okay, I talk to a lot of people and I hear a lot of things, and I'm one man's opinion. Okay, everybody else is going to have an opinion. Brands you're at 100% right though. We do practice pitch sessions for brands. Right. Okay. Every investor has a different take on on that pitch. There's investors who say, hey, you got to put your ingredient mix up front. There's others that say, hey, I want to know about the founding team, but I don't need to know that these 12 people are your advisors early on. You can save that for the end. Everybody has a different opinion of what that pitch deck should look like. It's up to that brand to say, here's the 9 to 15 pages, 12 pages that really say what my brand is. Say who I am, why I did this, what's going to happen, how's it going to look, what it is, and and where we're going to go, and and share that very simply, in a way that conveys who they are and what they're doing and where they're going to get as best as possible. So they get a lot of advice. I think every piece of advice is probably good advice, and that they just have to start weighing it and testing it all before they take any, quick steps.
No, exactly.
Super answer.
No, so Tom, what separates a coachable founder from a stubborn one that, it's just burning time and money all the time? I mean, what's the big thing in terms of somebody being coachable?
If I could say one, I feel like there's going to be people going to hate me when this is over. If I could say, the founders that got burned once are the most coachable. That even if they even they got through it and they got to a certain point, even if they've were mildly successful, they are always looking for ideas. They're always looking for what's next. I think the ones who are, it's really interesting because, you got to be passionate about the product. If you're going to go into CPG, you have to be passionate about the product. You have to believe in that product. Okay. And the ones that are probably need to really, are the ones that are so passionate that they forget they're building a business, that they're forgetting they have to reach profitability, they're forgetting they have to show a growth story, that they forget this because they're so passionate about the product, which they need to be. I would never, I would never want to, talk to a brand founder who wasn't, incredibly passionate about their product. They need to be. They got to believe in it, and it's got to come from a place. And I know this word gets thrown around, but I still believe it's got to come from a point of that they got to be authentic.
That word, yes, that word,
that word,
a word,
ity on the end. Okay.
Yeah, no. So I mean, you could though be passionate about that homemade ketchup business you've been making in the same cracked toilet for the last 100 years, but that's not going to get you anywhere.
No.
It's really
right.
Just
that's the whole point. You got to get beyond that. You have to move beyond that.
Yes. Well, that's a good point too, because I think that's where a lot of sometimes founders need a CEO at some point, right? Because they're not that person, right?
Right. And they're not the person to do everything. We had I don't know if you guys know Robert Craven. Okay, he was the founder.
Oh yeah,
of Mega Foods, and
I had lunch with him years ago. Great guy.
Okay, well, he came in last year and did a great webinar for us to talk about founders going from being a passion-oriented founder to a successfully driven CEO. Okay, how do they make that transition? Okay. And they're going to have to make that transition, or they're going to have to figure out who they need. They may need to hire a CEO, but they're great at sales, right? I mean, we know this. They're great at sales, or they're great at the working with the buyers and working with the distributors and things like that. But at the same time, they're not the person to manage costs, or it takes too much time. They need to figure all that out. Building that team, investors, as you grow, investors are going to want to know your team. Investors will say they want to talk to your team, they want to interview your team, they want to see how you run the business. But if you're at 9 or 10 million in sales, you better be looking like a CEO.
Right.
Because that Series A or Series B money, the last thing, the next thing that's going to happen is you get it, but they say, no, this is your operations manager, this is your CFO, you're going to use these people, and they will. I mean, they're putting, they're putting 10 or 15 or 20 million in your brand. They're going to want to do that, and that's fine. They're going to have 3 seats on your board, and and you're going to have to listen. But it's those kinds of things that really matter. I think when you're trying to grow that brand is thinking about how you go from a product that you've thought about all your life, okay, or that or that you and this is the authenticity part of it, that it helped you. You made a CPG product that actually helped you in your life, and you believe in it. You got to transition that into building a business.
And our friend Gavin here has a quick question. I don't know if we saw this yet. Does a pitch deck need to look top notch, or does an investor want to see good data?
To me, it's data. Okay, they don't want a lot of words. Okay, but they want data. They want to know, some of the basics, that we've talked about, the turns on the shelf, and what you've done with your money and where are you going to go. There's a lot of decks that look AI deck.
I bet there are now.
Well, on the other side, Gavin, I would tell you that if your data sucks, your deck better look great. So
Right.
Bury it in some fancy colors.
So I think there is a mix probably, but it's to keep investors interested, to get them to the next stage, they're going to want to know there's something real. Okay.
Right.
And whether that's data, whether that's an incredible growth story for Brookshires or at Moms or someplace, that there's some incredible growth story you can talk to. They need to see something that's going to keep them interested. But they also know for brands that are at 500,000 in sales, at least even I use this term professional angels, which I feel bad about, but the people that actually invest for a living. Not the people that are on Kickstarter, or the people that are, or even your friends and family who say, "Oh, I know Jeff Great. He's a winner. I'm going to invest in him." Professional angels know that even young brands do not have access to a lot of data. Okay, unless they can look at their reorders, and they may be able to talk to a buyer who tells them something, but their access to data is limited. So the way you show them information, the way you show them how you've grown so far, the money you've spent, the returns you've gotten, the contribution margin, all those things is really, really important.
Yep.
Okay. I think the one thing of note is that the Ray Bradbury estate is making a killing on royalties right now. Every time we say data, just cleaning up.
Just cleaning up.
And the other thing is, you brought it up, angel investors. Is there such thing as a demon investor? Asking for a friend.
Boy, I don't.
Should be, shouldn't there? Like a really
should be.
evil.
There should be, there probably should be. I mean, there's dumb money, right?
Yeah, there's dumb money. There should be demonic investors.
Yeah, there's dumb money, right? You can get investment that's simply money, and you don't get any intelligence behind it. You know, and sometimes I think that's where some brand founders may make the mistake. They find somebody who loves their product and says, here's $100,000, and then they think they can run the business, and and whether they have a CPG background or not, I think it's really important, for people to really understand who those investors are.
Right on. And Jeff Krinsky's making a great point. Thank you, Mr. Krinsky. We appreciate it. Hey, since I derailed us for a minute there, let's continue with the derailment. So when was and we all get them, but do you have any recollection of the last cold DM you got in LinkedIn that was just pure nonsense?
I'm not going to say it was pure nonsense, but I recently had someone, and we probably had 2 mutual contacts. Okay. And they reach out and they say, I have access to hundreds of family offices and would love to find out more about what you do. Right. And I said, okay.
Wait a minute.
So
different things.
We work with emerging brands to help them find investment. And if any of those family offices are interested in emerging CPG brands, small ones under 10 million in sales, I'd be happy to talk to you or to them. Okay. And instead of some kind of response like, those aren't the family offices I work with, or none of them are interested, or whatever, I get back, well, actually, I'm interested in finding out about your take on technology and how it's going to be used with AI. And it was just like,
what just happened?
And I get more of those that I think crazy. I get these ones that they I don't know if it's bot driven or, or what,
Yes.
it's that we look at it. You look at it. They've looked at you, or they've understood enough, or their AI looked at your profile to understand. Oh, he's an emerging CPG. He's going to be interested in this.
Yep.
And then they just use it to ask some other question. Then I don't know if it's a scam. I don't know if they're just, if it's a real person trying to write a newspaper article. I don't know.
They want to wire transfer some money to you.
And we do too.
I also get, about 16 calls every day for, and they're always 47 seconds long. They're always going to loan me $125,000.
Oh, we're on the same list.
And I get, and they have area code 270. They have area code 214. It's like, if somebody leaves me a voicemail, it's probably going to get deleted because I don't even look at them anymore.
We're on the same list. And, I'll tell you, I've taken a different approach. So I've accepted every single one of these offers, and I'm almost a billionaire by now. So, I don't intend to pay any of them back.
I just saw Joshua Shirt's comment there.
Yeah.
He's pretty right.
Sorry, Jeff. Sorry.
I mean, there's been a ton of money wasted, on some, some really nebulous technology.
Yes.
We're
all aware of that.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
It's like the people growing teeth now in some foreign land where they're like growing teeth. And I'm like, it's disturbing. Like maybe we can do it, but do we really
You really need to. You said you made a steak the other day. I mean, would you have made that steak if it had come from a lab? And
No, I wouldn't have. I'll take my chances. I like to play with the cards I have. I like to, spend the money that's in my pocket. I don't play that game. Hey, Jeff, I think it's time for, so Tom, we every so often have a few doozies of these that we like to share with people. There's those cold cold reach outs, and it's a little. Well, I'll just introduce it here. Here it comes, and we'll sit back and see what Jeff's got for us.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Oh, Vivian Ume.
Right. So, what aspects of your work give you a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction and help you maintain your enthusiasm?
And your answer was?
Where is this? Like, how does she know that I'm enthusiastic?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is she stalking me?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Actually, I've been quite depressed lately. You should start a conversation.
Like you? Was your answer blocking people like you? That's why
enthusiasm. Right. That's probably what it was. I did block her, by the way. So Harbor Freight has the Icon Core Master tool set for me. You think I should grab this prize? You think it's pretty good, or?
Oh God, I can't see how this would go wrong. I like the way they turned your name into just one Jiltkovsky.
I think they said something about you have to put down some money first or something.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh.
Or they're going to be Temu tools that are like that big.
Yes.
Jeff, do you use a lot of tools?
I do. I do actually.
All right. Well, at least they do that.
So this is from BlackRock IRA investment manager. I'm Catherine from New York. I'm amazed by your impressive LinkedIn profile. I hope we can exchange ideas and learn from each other. Completely fake profile, by the way. I did look into this, and no big surprise, right?
So Piri A. Ferrari, she works for Ferraro Candy and Piri A. Water.
Works for everybody. Jeff, I've often told people just out of the blue on the street that Jeff's LinkedIn profile has tremendous girth. So it's no surprise to me that Kathleen noticed. Impressive. Tremendous girth. That's going to be my new band name.
That's perfect.
It's actually a good band name.
It's a great band name. Actually, you know what?
I had a
good first album. It's a good first album name.
I was helping someone study for their biology test, and there were all these fish they had to learn. This is back in the late 70s when when there was the whole Sex Pistols kind of punk rock thing, right?
Sure, nice.
And I came up with this great name for a band from two fish, Johnny Darter and the Black Crappies.
Oh, I like it. My current joke is a little play off of Hall & Oates. It's the band, the duo, John Party and was it John Party and Daryl Hard? John Party and Daryl Hard.
Party Hard.
It's actually John Hard and Daryl Party, and the album name is Hard and Party.
Right.
That's cute.
I really want to see it happen. I really, really want to see that.
I can tell you,
if anybody is here today that has some free time to mess around with their graphic design stuff, make me an album cover for Daryl Hard and John Party.
Right.
I won't pay you, but we will share in the laugh.
He gets emails with companies that are interested in his vertical. Yes.
What is it, Jeff?
It's Richard. I've been getting emails telling me companies are interested in my vertical.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to get
weird. Horizontal, by the way. His vertical.
We're talking about Jeff's tremendous LinkedIn girth, and now we've moved on to the Moniz verticals. It's getting hot in here.
All right.
Before the LinkedIn police show up. So let's just stick with the same vibe. You brought up fish. You say you're trapped in the first half of the 20th century. Why? What's the appeal?
It's it comes from my parents. When I was growing up in the 60s, going back to Pennsylvania, everything was the same as it was when my parents grew up. And I would hear these stories from my parents and uncles about growing up. And my dad was a Depression era. He left school in the 4th grade to go pick potatoes because his dad died. They lost the dairy farm. He was in the Civilian Conservation Corps. He was in World War II, the whole bit, right? It's all that. My dad loved old movies. We would sit there on Saturday morning, at this time, Saturday morning, besides cartoons, had on Sherlock Holmes movies and Tarzan movies and Roy Rogers movies, and Basil Rathbone and as Sherlock Holmes,
Yep.
And I was just schooled on all this kind of stuff. This is where I went. And I'd see an old movie, I'd go get the book, so I'd watch something that was probably well beyond my years, but people didn't monitor that in that time. So I'd go and get the book and read the book, and it just sort of evolved on me that this is where I live. This is my space. This is where I'm comfortable. I always had this idea of taking any kind of the stories I have and everything else, and I got this great book title. But it sort of is that when Stan Musial was a cardinal. Because he was a cardinal from 41 to 63, from the start of World War II until Kennedy was, shot, and sort of that era of, my parents, of the parents of baby boomers like me, the people that were born in the 40s and 50s, this is that era, that sort of I grew up in. So it's just kind of where I fall, it's where I fall with my perspective and, how I look at things and how I look at society. Maybe a little old fashioned, but I think more traditional is probably the better word. It's just more like, okay, this is the way I was raised, and this is where, where I sort of fit, from that perspective. And here I am 100 years later trying to figure out life still.
Right.
I love it. I'm a big fan of history and literature, and all of those things get me fired up, So if you had a time period that you could go back and spend a month in, is there one? What one? Nobody ever says the Depression, so I'm not expecting you to say.
But it's probably like 1940.
Oh, really?
It's probably that era where America was coming out of the Depression. Things were starting to happen.
Wait, you said 1940? Okay.
1940. The world was in crisis, yet sort of the modern conveniences of the world were established, okay, at least in some realm. And it's sort of that era where, a lot was going on in the world. And, and people were getting a more broadened view of the world as a whole. It wasn't just, there's a war off in Europe. Okay. They were starting to understand these things more. Magazines and newsreel brought real life to people on a regular basis, and I think that was just an era where it would have been exciting. Okay. The other place is probably, for some reason, if you look at the year 1908, take some time and look at the year 1908, so much in the world was transitioning industrially, financially, geopolitically. It was just an amazing kind of year in 1908, and something that, is like, wow, this really set the stage for the next 100 years of invention and technology and so much else. It's just really a very interesting year, but 1940 is probably where I belong.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Hey, Jeff, we got something we wanted to do before the end of the show today.
Yeah. How about
what is that? Clue me in. Fill me in, because I don't know.
Oh, a trivia question. A trivia prize.
Trivs. What's the prize today? Is it going to be this genuine moon rock from the Apollo 13 mission?
I don't think that's from an actual mission.
Is it going to be this set of Allen wrenches missing one wrench?
It's going to be a mystery prize from Amazon.
Okay. Ooh, are we just going to spin the old Amazon wheel and you get what you get, and you don't complain?
All right. This is kind of a fun question, at least for me, because I'm a big car enthusiast. Do you like cars, Tom?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you like history, so this is sort of
old
like
cars.
Yeah. So here's
I can't tell the difference between a Ford and a Chevy these days.
What did Lamborghini manufacture before they started making exotic cars? That is the question today.
That's a great question. What are people thinking? Tom, I'll ask you a question while these guys, I was going to say think, but really the truth is while they Google it.
Right.
You know,
ChatGPT.
we all know what's happening here.
I
We
know
weren't
what's
born
happening
yesterday.
out there.
So we were talking. What's your favorite time period to read about? For me, it's kind of Revolutionary War stuff. How about you?
Revolutionary War, but I
Yeah.
also very much like reading sort of the medieval, development of the UK kind of era, the 1200s to the
Kind of the
50s.
10 Follett.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of stuff, almost like that. But I love sort of that time period where they did build the cathedrals and, where, things started to change, in the world from a, feudal to bourgeoisie to actually seeing art develop and mathematics develop and science develop. It's just a very interesting period in terms of human development.
Imagine that. And then on the history side or the Revolutionary War side, have you read any of the Nathaniel Philbrick books? Have you heard of him?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Look him up. You will love this. So he's got a good dozen books, I suppose, but like Bunker Hill is one of his best. Mayflower is another one.
Okay.
So he's a writer of history who goes back and digs up more than we ever were taught.
I'll have to look at him. I have not looked at him.
Yeah, he's not writing fiction. He is doing like the homework. That's why he's been at this a long time, doesn't have a ton of books, but they are mind-boggling and so interesting.
I'll have to take a look at him. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. He's got some, even though the whaling industry, he's got some stuff about that.
Oh, cool.
But Bunker Hill is always fascinating because I grew up in Boston. Jeff grew up there too. And I remember it wasn't that long ago, they were doing a bunch of reno work in Charlestown and they kept finding like graves of redcoats in like people's basement and backyard. And they were like,
oh yeah,
we really can't dig here. Sorry, everybody. And they were like, but then they were like, we really should like remove these and send them back to England. And that's what there was a bunch of shit going on with that.
Are you guys old enough to remember the Avon Hill and 3M games? You laid out the Battle of Stalingrad or the battle, and you moved a little. You had it was like
Risk,
the original Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay,
and you rolled dice, and the one dice said the weather, and the other dice said the and you.
I was old enough, but I was outside, like breaking things.
Well, I lived in Cleveland. There was a long winter.
Yeah. Hey,
we have a winner.
Oh, good. What do we got?
It's Gavin.
Gavin Conkle, ladies and gentlemen.
Farm tractors. He gets the prize.
And what was the answer to the question, Jeff?
The answer was tractors.
Oh, tractors.
Now I don't know if I got the story completely straight, but I believe the owner of Lamborghini had an idea that he wanted to share with Ferrari. And so he went there, told him his idea, and they literally like threw him out of the place. And they said, get lost, you make tractors. And
I've always been pro tractor.
That's why he started Lamborghini car.
and I think, Jeff, isn't it pronounced Lamborghini?
No, it is not. It's not
sure?
Lamborghini.
All right. I thought it was Lamborghini. Hey, Tom, you've been so great today, man. This was so much fun.
I hope I lived up to your standards.
Yeah. You just raised the standards, baby. As Kojak would say, you raised the standards, baby. I lost myself in that one. I'm sorry. I apologize. Tom, is there anything you want to leave our audience with today?
No, I guess the only thing, if there's, I'm always happy to talk to brands, talk to people. If there's any ways, Susan and I are always looking for ways to help emerging brands. And, if there's any kind of partnership or opportunity to do that, we're open to talking. So, I just appreciate, having the chance to share with you guys and, get a little off track with, with movies and books and other things. Cause that's, it's not dry and boring just talking about brands all the time.
Those are the things that make us each interesting, Tom.
Right. And give us some individuality and the things
right.
we talk about. So I really appreciate the chance to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. If you don't know Tom, please look him up. That's and I'm pronouncing it right, Tom. Tom Malengo.
Right.
Yep. Right on.
Yep.
If you don't know Tom, look him up, connect with him, say hi. And like I said, next week we've got Anton LaVey coming up, and that should be a real shit show. So we don't have Anton LaVey coming on. I think he's dead. But
yes,
if our people can reach his people, maybe we'll see.
Hey, you never know.
We actually have our
night. Hold it at night. And maybe do it on Friday the 13th. To do it tomorrow on the 13th.
I love it. That's right.
Where's that? No, Halloween is too deep.
Yeah, he might. Yeah, that cross on the wall behind you is going to flip off in a minute if we keep talking like this. It's going to fall right off the wall. Yeah. I think I need an exorcism now. Like pronto. Jeff, what were you going to say, buddy?
I was just going to say our guest next week is actually Phaedra Dyer.
Phaedra LaVey?
Yes, Phaedra LaVey.
No, Phaedra Dyer.
Yes, CPG sales guru.
So we love some Phaedra, and she's a rock star, and you guys are going to love her too. I'm going to post up for that show probably either tomorrow or Monday, and make sure you stay tuned for that one. And we can't thank you enough, Tom. Thank you to everybody.
Thanks. I appreciate the chance to be here.
Totally, dude. This was so much fun. So we're going to get going, and it's always this weird, awkward thing before it ends. I push the button and it sort of ends, but doesn't end. So we're all stuck here for a second while we're waiting for it to end. So do you, but just know that everyone will continue to see you for the next 3 seconds. Hey, everybody, see you next week. Have a great day. And don't forget, okay? Don't forget,